Should smartphones be allowed in schools?
No.
Why not?
Well, I think they are a huge distraction. I understand from a parent's perspective why they might like their child to have a phone in order to be able to communicate if they've forgotten to tell them that there's a hockey match or a netball match after school or whatever, or if there is a particular problem about something. But the issue here is smartphone.
I agree.
These phones are anything and everything but a telephone. They give you access to the world out there. And I do feel that people in general are far too attached to them. And in school, it becomes the thing, doesn't it? It's how you make friends, how you keep friends, how you cause trouble, how you access information that maybe you shouldn't be accessing, and there comes even at the school I taught at, we would say phones needed to be locked in lockers, or we would confiscate them. But again, you come up against the issues that children will always push the boundaries, pupils will push the boundaries, they'd put them in their bags, they'd go off. There'd be an alarm of some sort or some kind of alert. And you'd know they were in the bag. That leads to confrontation. But the biggest issue is it goes back, I suppose, to information and how to use that information wisely. It goes back to history, if you like. There's too much out there. And it's not used with any discernment. And there are too many ways to hurt people with them.
Yeah. So you taught in an all-girls school. That must have been even more challenging, especially for their safeguarding, and you were responsible for that.
Yes, I was responsible for the safeguarding. In my role, I was a DSL, a safeguarding lead.
Yeah.
A designated safeguarding lead, and you would not believe the number of problems phones cause.
For example?
Practically every problem I ever dealt with latterly in my career was to do with a message on a phone. Now, that message may well have been sent covertly during school, in which case it is specifically the school's issue. But phones go home with students. They are attached to them. They scarcely put them down when they go to sleep, and messages ping all night. And conversations are had, and some of them can be malicious, some of them can be really malign, some of them may not be as intended, because the one thing you can't get on a phone is an understanding, on a message, is an understanding of tone. And the expectation, and those problems come into school. If they're friendship groups within school, they come into school. And the understanding is that we then in school will deal with them.
And does that distract you guys from the
Would you say the safeguarding issues have increased with the...
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because obviously there is this business of sexting, and that has become an issue with, I've dealt with issues of explicit photographs being sent between schools, boys in one school to girls in the school I taught at, or, messages demanding. Now, this is an issue that is illegal. but I've got to deal with it. You know, if it happens on my watch, I'm the one that's got to initiate the dealing with the problem. I'm the one that has to talk to the individual. I'm the person that has to talk to the parent of that child.
How do parents usually react to these situations, especially since they're the ones who have given these powerful devices without teaching their kids about it at such a young age? It really annoys me, by the way, as you can tell from my
well, yeah, it really annoys me as well. But because I think the expectation, particularly if it's within a friendship group in school, it's the school's issue.
Really?
Yeah.
That's such a massive
burden. Yeah, it is. It's a bit unfair, in my opinion.
Do you think children should have access to smartphones in the first place?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's always a question. And I think this is even more so, maybe it's a sexist thing to say, but I do think that girls are particularly vulnerable. You know, lads up until a certain age will go out and kick a football around the playground.
I don't think it's sexist because there's a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. It shows that women have been affected with the rise of social media way more than men.
Yeah.
The suicide rates and, you know, all the other horrible like body self-esteem issues.
Yes.
They have been like 3-4 times more than that of a man. So your data would support your claim.
Yeah, I think so. There's undoubtedly there's access to websites, you know, that are pro-anorexic. There are people on X, formerly known as Twitter, who are constantly body shaming. It's a difficult path for young women to negotiate because there is an expectation about how they should look, how they should behave. Friendship groups are intensely important to girls, and this need to, if you like, conform. Teenagers do like to think that they are individuals, but at heart they're all conformists.
Yeah.
And this is where social media and smartphones play a hugely damaging role. I know I sound like a boring old what's it. I am, and you know I have been retired 6 years. But I also feel that there's a sense in which social media and the use of smartphones and the damaging effect of the use of smartphones is catching up with young men as well.
100%, like 90% of men, or just actually young people in general, before the age of 18, are exposed to explicit content.
Yep.
Loneliness, again, comparisons, similar issues that women face. And just like the bad role models that are on there, the type of messages they're getting, the echo chambers they are in, the incel culture. I mean, I can go on.
Yeah.
It's even for myself, like, because I got an iPhone at the age of 15. And even now, when I look back on it, like, at the time, I was very thankful to my parents that they got me an iPhone. But I'm like, the amount of times that, like, my attention span has been ruined, especially during my A-level years. And I had to, like, put it off for 9 months when I was retaking my A-levels because I felt like it played a huge role in me failing my A-levels the first time round. And I missed out on brilliant university like King's and UCO. And then when I went off here for 9 months, then I was able to get those universities back. And, you know, I would have regretted like these bad habits for years, for decades. You know, if I hadn't fixed my habit, and for some people they can't because they don't have that education or they don't get lucky like me.
No. I think this is true. I think we do have to come to the realization that smartphones are having a detrimental effect. I think that there is a generation older than you. I would say my children's age, they're in their 30s. They have, well, my son has a child, And I would say that age group is just as attached to their phones, and they need to set a good example to their children. You know, put the smartphone down. I see now that I'm not in school, I see people walking about the street with their phones in their hands. And okay, I might say I live near the university. Maybe they're looking for somewhere. Maybe they're finding directions. But then I see an awful lot of young parents with their children pushing wheelchairs, you know, and they're not engaging with their child in that pram. Sorry, not wheelchairs, I mean pushchairs. In that pram, or, you know, in their pram or their pushchair. They're not engaging with the child.
Or the second the child starts crying, go, take the phone.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you think our generation is more aware of these things because we've been through them? Like, if I had a child, I would not give them a phone until...
Would you not?
A smartphone, at least, until they're like at least 16, 17 maybe. Because they are just so detrimental, I think, especially in today's culture where there's so much out there, like you said. I don't think it does anything to help them, especially this like new form of parenting where if the child is unhappy or crying, you just give them an iPad or a phone to watch some YouTube videos.
Well, this is it. I mean, I often, sometimes my granddaughter will say to me when we're in a cafe or something, you know, and she's got a little bit bored or whatever, she'll say, "Can I watch something on your phone, Nanny?" And Nanny will just say to her, "No, because it doesn't work on my phone." Now, I have a smartphone like everybody else, but I don't want that to be the way in which, you know, I'm there to talk to her. I'm there to interact with her.
I hope she doesn't see this episode.
Yeah.
She's going to realize the phone does work.
Yeah. The phone, oh yes. Oops. Yeah, it does work, but I don't have enough, whatchamacallit, data. That's the excuse. I don't have enough data.
Yeah, she doesn't. I can testify to that.
I think on another point, I think it's important to realize it's okay to be bored sometimes as well.
Yeah.
We've got to a point now where we're constantly looking for these dopamine hits.
Yeah.
No one wants to be bored even for a second. And I don't know how that can be healthy to the human mind, which has adapted to like no stimulus for so long. The only stimulus you'd probably get like back then was if a lion came at you.
You'd be pretty stimulated then, I would imagine. But yeah, it is as though it is wrong, and sometimes I feel that maybe not just smartphones, but I think that society as a whole may have a role to play in that. You know, that you have got to be usefully engaged at all times. But I remember as a child saying to my parents, "Oh, I'm bored." You know, and they say, "Well, go and read a book, go and play." And I think this is the thing. It's and we're also I think parents are so concerned about the safety of their children, and because there are so many horror stories, that sometimes they forget about free play, that their child doesn't need to have something to do every minute of the day, an organised something to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you can spend £1,000 on a phone, I'm sure you can sort out these, play the proper, like, real life world, go out in a safe way.
Yeah.
And even then, like you said, they don't need to be doing that all the time, 24 hours of the day. They don't need to have something to do.
No, I think we are maybe breeding a generation of overstimulated and perhaps therefore stressed individuals. But I also think the opposite side of things is that maybe we need to encourage a little bit more resilience.
So do you think our generations are snowflakes?
No, I don't think that you are snowflakes as a generation. I just feel that I think maybe there is, because of phones possibly, there is an assumption that there can be a quick fix to things. And sometimes you need to work at things. You need to accept that life is life and there will be difficult things, bad things that might happen to you, but it's how you respond to them that's important.
Speaking of difficult things, so you've also taught Malala.
Yeah.
And when she came from...
Malala wasn't difficult.
Well, the situation was. What was that like for you? If you enjoyed this segment, please make sure to like and subscribe. Also, the link to the full podcast is in our description. And finally, I wanted to say that please make sure to follow and download the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so we can bring you more amazing content. Thank you so much for listening.